points, poorest regions and epidemics epicenters. International organizations carry out their activities in parts of the world where they are critical for people. They unite countries and continents, save millions of lives and solve global problems. Watch more on this in Kazakhstan International Vectors. $1 invested into the preservation of water resources in the future will help to save $200 spent on water purification. We should be aware about the economic value of biodiversity. Natural services we have to pay for. Ecosystem services are those goods and services which we get from the nature for our daily activities. Ecosystem services include wood, berries, mushrooms and so on. Agriculture has always been playing a significant role in people's life. In fact, the demand for fruit and vegetables is constantly growing. In the meantime, organic products caused a boom on the food market. Armanzhan Zhamiev has been reviving agriculture of Kazakhstan from the very beginning. As early as in 1990s, despite discourages of his family and friends, he decided to plant an apple garden on an absolutely unsuitable stony piece of land, which was earlier used for cattle driving. I planted these trees on a stony and infertile land. Now it is a very fruitful soil. We nourished it with organic and mineral fertilizers and followed all the rules of farm management. How does Armanzhan manage to preserve the fertility of his land, and what 2 million hectares of soil in Kostanay province were used for? Coming up next. Wastewaters, ocean pollution, abusive exploitation of forest resources and construction of industrial giants foredoomed to destruction unique areas of our planet. Among them are coral reefs, mangrove forests and even the Dead Sea. The environmental problems of the 21st century require their immediate solution. Consider ecologists and call humankind to make the transition from the brown to green economy. The last one is capable of increasing the natural capital and reducing ecological threats and risks. Shifting of countries towards the green economy is supported by a number of international organizations. Among them is the UN Development Programme.
But at the same time, along with supporting developing countries, we also help partner with countries with high income in order to provide support to the global community and help develop global partnerships.
The UN Development Programme was established in 1965 with the headquarters in New York. UNDP works in 177 countries throughout the world, helping them to find their own solutions in establishing international partnerships. Eradicating poverty, creating as much workplaces as possible, solving ecological issues and much more. In fact, UNDP has a lot of major tasks. Still, all of them are focused on the improvement of the livelihood of each person.
For example, we look at the finite resources that is still left, but yet many corporations, many countries are still exploiting its natural resources in an unsustainable manner. So there are a lot of challenges that the humanity is faced with, and UNDP, along with many other international organizations, helps overcome these challenges and helps countries to become more resilient to global shocks, to climate change and many other challenges.
Thus, the Desert Project was launched in Kazakhstan in 2013 with the UNDP's assistance. It is focused on biodiversity preservation by expanding the network of conservation areas and preventing land degradation by means of landscape design. Now we're actively working upon the creation of a new large conservation area with a territory of 400,000 hectares near Almaty or Balkhash. The natural conservation areas in Kazakhstan exceed 20 million hectares, 23.8. The monitoring and protection of 140 mammal, more than 300 bird and more than 20 fish species is underway. From year to year, humankind expands the boundaries of its activities, unwittingly invading into the habitat of wild animals. The construction of railroads and motorways has a dramatic impact on wildlife, in particular disrupting migration routes of animals. Therefore, Ecologic Corridor, with a total area of 2 million hectares, was created in Kostanay province within the framework of cooperation between the Global Ecologic Fund, UNDP and the government of Kazakhstan.
Есть еще такой новый вид, но неохраняемая территория,
Along with conservation districts, there is a new type of areas called ecologic corridors. Their purpose is to protect the habitat and migration routes of big-hoofed mammals. Thus, gazelles are one of the key species. They migrate between conservation areas which are not protected enough. Farmers from all over the world elaborate their methods of work depending on the place of their farm. Many of them are making the enormous contribution into UNDP's work by turning abandoned lands into flourishing farms. Armanzhan Zhamiev is one of such land users who found the way of how to maintain and even increase the fertility of his land during several decades. After removing of all trees, we should give the soil to rest for 1 year. After that, we plant row crops and perennial grasses. All that is done for improving the soil. Approximately in the 3rd or 4th year, we plant young trees. What are ecosystem payments and how did the authorities of New York avoid an ecological disaster? Later on in the program. The UN Development Programme was established in 1965 as a result of the merger between the UN Special Fund and the expanded Programme of Technical Assistance. It is being financed by means of voluntary contributions of member organizations and concerned international communities.
And it's actually one of the biggest UN organizations around the world whose activities is focused on a wide range of development issues. So we don't have, sometimes organizations and people say that UNDP doesn't have a very clear mandate, but actually our mandate, because we cover so many issues, but our mandate is actually very clear. It's really to promote equitable human development everywhere.
Since 1970, UNDP has been experiencing global changes. The organization becomes the principal coordinating and financial authority of the international technical assistance system. And beginning from 1990, UNDP, based on the opinion of international experts and statistical data of intergovernmental organizations, started publishing the annual reports on human development.
UNDP partners with all kinds of organizations, with civil society, with non-governmental organizations, for example, so not just with international organizations.
New York became one of the first megacities which experienced all the hardships of urbanization. In early 1990s, the quality of domestic water sharply deteriorated and the local Environmental Protection Agency demanded from the authorities to construct a filtering plant. Due to the high cost of the project, the city authorities had nothing but to turn down the request. Instead of that, they asked for assistance from farmers whose lands were located upstream Hudson River, the main water source in the city. In addition, they suggested the agrarians to find their work on water purification. During 10 years, about $1.5 billion were spent for that purpose, and as a result, the city residents could enjoy pure water. The farmers gained incomes and the authorities avoided heavy costs. The system is regarded as an outstanding example of adoption of ecosystem payments. In addition, the issue of their expanded use is again much discussed in UNDP. We damage our ecosystems by exploiting them. Because of that, the issues of sustainable use in this case are equally important. So the adoption of ecosystem services has become one of the most important economic mechanisms which directly connect customers and service providers. Ecosystem services are a total range of services provided us by nature. Nowadays, with a framework of green economy development, the emphasis is put on several projects. The first one, BioFem, is being implemented in 30 countries. Specialists gather and analyze the information on the private sectors and government's concernment in biodiversity preservation. The second one, CB2, is focused on the adequate estimation of the damage caused to biodiversity. The damage to biodiversity is not calculated on a full scale and the compensation paid is very low. However, there are a lot of various approaches and methods of biological resources estimation. The issues of natural resources should be included into our decision-making policy. A correct assessment and usage of land resources is nowadays on the agenda in many countries, UNDP specialists say. Thus, the completion of the zoning scheme is regarded as the basis of human land use and is not only capable of preventing soil degradation, but also improving its condition. The creation of this system based on the recommendation of particular zones will allow to keep a record of forest lands and hunting entities, tourism, cattle farming, agriculture and water sector. Specialists note that the creation of conservation areas is not the only important thing. The other side of the question is also gaining support of the local population living near natural parks. In many countries, including Kazakhstan, these people are given microcredits for the development of economic entrepreneurship, as well as hotel and tourist businesses.
So, for example, we looked at the issue of microcredit as access to affordable financial resources for poor populations, but also for the development of entrepreneurship and development of small and medium businesses.
Annually, Armanzhan Zhamiev gets 15-20 tons of apples from 1 hectare of land. Gathering good crop is as important as preserving soil fertility in order to allow next generations to run farms without damaging the environment, he says. For those farmers who want to grow their own gardens, I recommend, first of all, to make soil analysis, follow all agronomic norms and consult professional agronomists. Recently, a group of scientists who tried to determine the strength of the global ecosystem came to the shocking conclusion. It came out that humankind already damaged 4 planetary boundaries. All that deteriorates the environment and, if no preventive measures are taken, can lead to catastrophic consequences. The quality of ecosystem services is the basis of a country's economy and people's livelihoods. It means that the failure of the ecosystem will deprive us of high-quality services. Thus, for example, lack of water will lead to the reduction of grazing lands, desertification and soil degradation. In its turn, it will cause the collapse of the agricultural and other economy sectors. Specialists assure that the problem of biodiversity is the cause of every one of us and should be solved by not only governments and international organizations, but by the private sector as well. The problem of biodiversity nowadays is especially acute due to the intensive development of agriculture, industry and oil sector. It obliges us to strike the happy medium. In other words, we should exploit our ecosystems and natural capital and at the same time think about the next generations. A 20-year-old Dutch researcher, Boyan Slat, has elaborated a system called Ocean Cleanup. This innovation focused on water purification looks like a giant tick and functions like a fishing net. However, it captures only garbage. It will be the largest device ever installed in the ocean. It is expected to be installed near Tsushima Island in the Korea Strait. It should be noted that it is only the first step in ocean cleanup. Within the nearest 5 years, Slat and his team plan to construct a 100-kilometer-long system near the Great Garbage Patch in the Pacific Ocean.